This was a breakout plan by Overlord-Flinx. Had it been a month? Or was it 5 days? Perhaps a year had gone by. The moments just blended together after the first week of incarceration. Derpy Hooves paced from one end of her cell to the other, listening to the chatter of the other inmates in the distance. Her every moment devoured at her mortal soul, even to the point that her flesh began to itch as the starvation began to eat at her own self. Even torture was never this cruel. She snapped to the bars of her cell and looked to the Canterlot guard stationed right outside of it.
How long will you keep me here?
She cried, her lungs choking from a lack of fresh air. Ma'am, as I've told you when you were brought back in here after your lunch, it has only been 3 days. Please calm yourself. The guard seemed less than amused, to the point that he did not even look at the loopy-eyed pony. Monsters. That was lunch. What lunch didn't even provide applesauce? These prison guards were worse than scum. Derpy undid herself from the bars and slinked back to the other side of the cell. 3 days. 3 days it had been since he delivered the mail. 3 days since he had a nice muffin top. 3 days since that unicorn in the corner of the cell started looking at her with a hatred that seemed to be growing the more she looked back at him.
What are you in for?
She asked. The unicorn snorted a crude look to Derpy before flinging his red cape over his body. She found it strange that they let whoever this was keep their cape, crown, and whatever that weird neck thing around his neck was. When a moment of silence came into the cell, Derpy felt she had to break it before the silence too started killing her.
Me? Why am I here? Well, in January of 2012, I was sent to this prison for a crime I didn't commit.
This seemed to bring the unicorn's attention. He looked over his shoulder and lifted one of his brows curiously.
I mean, I don't even know how to hold a bat. How can I ruin the box magic picture box porta potty?
The unicorn moved out of the shadows and looked at Derpy even more curiously. Derpy had to reflect such a curiosity since he saw this unicorn was fairly missing something important.
Vengeance,
he mumbled with a hushed voice that rattled through the cell.
Oh, they cheated you too?
Derpy put a hoof to her face and began to think. Once the single gear in the cobweb-ridden echo chamber that was her head started to tick, she clapped her hoof back against the floor.
I got it. With me and you working together, we can break out.
Just from the sheer level he said that, the unicorn was forced to cover her mouth with one of his hooves. He hissed into her ears as he dragged her into the corner of his cell. When he took his hoof over her mouth, she immediately started talking again.
Right. Shh. So, are you in or out?
She put one of her hooves up, expecting him to clap his hoof into it as a form of agreement. This dark unicorn, missing his horn, pondered the idea just for a moment. Slowly, his larger hoof clacked against the base of Derpy's.
Sombra,
huh? Alrighty, Mikey. I'm Derpy Hooves. So, got any ideas on how to break out?
Sombra mused for a thought by plopping one of his hooves against a strong chin. Soon, a devilish smirk creased between his lips as he moved to whisper something to his newest partner. The hush of barely audible words was all the guards outside heard, followed by a pair of snickers. The guard's full attention was drawn when Derpy came back to the cell door and cleared her throat for attention.
Mr. Guard, sir, can I ask you a favor?
The guard's orders directly from Shining Armor were very simple. This inmate was far from a threat and was only to be serving her time until the charges could be worked out properly. For this reason, she would not be treated like a criminal. The guard leaned close to her behind the bars and gave her an attentive look. Yes, ma'am. What can I do you for? Before the guard could even react, a blood-red cape swung around the bars and hooked the back of the guard's neck. With a swift jerk, the guard's neck cracked loudly and his body fell limp against the bars. At this, Derpy slid one of her own wings and picked a pair of keys from the guard's side. Clinking the few keys against the keyhole, the cell finally opened, and Derpy pranced out with a gleeful expression.
The favor was for you to get wrecked.
Derpy snickered with a look to the limp guard Sombra was undoing his cape around. After Sombra cleaned his cape off, he moved beside Derpy and studied the open area of the prison. A few of the other inmates seemed to have keyed in on the quick action the two just did, and were now looking out their own cells at the two escapees.
What do we do now? Go find your horn?
Sombra answered Derpy by moving back to the guard they just took out and put a hoof on either side of his white horn. He wasn't going to need it anymore, so, with another snap against that guard, Sombra claimed his horn and put it in place of his broken one.
Oh, I don't know if that's how that works.
The Dark King only shook his head and began to lead his way down the hallway, passing by many onlooking prisoners. Derpy skipped along behind him with nothing but joy in her step. Wherever this path led them, the two were bound with one another until the pact was completed.
Alright.
We will break out of this prison in but a moment if we knock out that guard.
Knock him out, huh? Psst. He'll get back up if we just knock him out. I'll lead him close and you snap his neck with your cape.
Are you sure you didn't do that crime?
Derpy Hooves don't do no petty vandalism, but she's about to do some premeditated heats of passion when she gets out of here.
Help me get my horn back, and you'll have a powerful ally in that.
Thus, the tale of Sombra the Black and Derpy the Crooked began, until they were found 5 minutes later after killing the guard trying to steal muffin tops from the mess hall. The end.